And good afternoon, everybody. This is Sheilah, Middle School Art and Magic. Been teaching middle school art for 10 years. And this is not in my classroom, this is in my home studio. But I wanted to make you aware of what I'm doing here. I'm going to be doing a pouring today, and I'm using some really common products here. First off, I'm using some clear gesso, and I've mixed a little bit of silicone in my gesso. I've mixed two kinds, about a drop or a drop and a dribble of each of these. And that's the only place I put silicone for this pour. Everything else is just the paint I've been using mixed with pouring medium, Liquitex pouring medium. I've mixed the paint to be about the consistency of thick cream. It ribbons right into itself really quickly. The paints I'm using here are already pretty milky consistency. I'm using this Lucas Krill liquid. Loving it. Those two colors, these two colors, and a few other colors that I had left from an earlier pour, but those are the main ones. And this, I had to add quite a bit of pouring medium to this Liquitex Silver Basics. I love it. This is fabulous if you like a little glimmer in your paintings. I have to mix a little more pouring medium in that because I said it is thick, and it gets about the consistency of I would say milkshake, thin milkshake. First step though is going to be the clear gesso, and that again, the only thing that's in this is the silicone besides the gesso as it comes in the bottle. Now I'm going to pour that on first and spread it out with my trusty omelet spatula by OXO, which is fantastic for smoothing this stuff around. And the reason I like to do this first is because it makes everything else go so much more smoothly, and the paint colors glide across the surface, and it provides you with a really cool, I guess when you want to say tilting it to the sides to kind of pour it, move it around, slide it around, if you will. I'm going to quickly put this over. I want to get on all the surface, but I'm not worried about it being perfectly smooth because that kind of happens later when it smooths itself out with the paint on the surface. So I want it, sort of smoothish, but I want to really make sure I get some everywhere. I got a little dab of color from earlier up there on the corner. I did an earlier pouring today, and I had a little bit of leftover color, like I said over here, maybe a teaspoon or a tablespoon of 2 or 3 different blues and greens, which I'll probably use in this pour too. Primarily though, it's going to be violets, blues, purples, that kind of thing. My last one was kind of an oceany one. Loved it, and love the effect of this combination of mediums. All right, so here we go. Time to get to the pouring part. I just want to make sure I got no dry surfaces left because, like I said, everything goes on so much better and smoother when this has this gesso on it. I'm loving that, and I think I'm just going to be spoiled by using it all the time. Just because, hey, I can and I shall. All right, so I'm going to lay that to the side for a minute. Now, I'm going to be mixing my colors in the gesso cup. I'm going to reuse the cup. These are little 4-ounce cups, really handy for these 12 by 12 canvases. And I'm going to start with my blue, pour a little blue in, covering the bottom there. Not too much, just a little. Then I'm going to add a little of this kind of medium violet. I'll call this kind of a red violet, if you will. If you hear background noises, my guinea pigs are in the next room. Or I should say our guinea pigs. They belong to the family. We have 3 in there, males. They're having some discussions today. I'm not sure what's going on. I think they're having an off day. They're trying to decide who's boss over there. And I think they all think they're boss, so we'll see how that turns out. They are adorable, but they have their moments, just like all of us, right? They are Mario, King Teddy, and Spike. I believe Spike is the youngest one. Here's this little bit of green I had left from earlier, along with those 2 blues I just poured in. So I'm pouring all these in here just kind of willy-nilly because, golly, that's what I like. There's some of that fantastic silver. It's a little thicker, but I don't mind that. In fact, I think it adds a lot to it. Now I'm going to go back with this blue that I got for this particular pour. We're going to have plenty of paint in this pour. I may have to do another one just to keep my paint from going to waste. I do hate to waste paint. And I'm sure you guys feel the same way. When I've got canvases, it's a sad thing to waste paint. Okay, last but not least, some more of that dark purple. Now these colors are permanent violet, that's the dark purple. Mauve, again, these are the Lucas Krill liquid. The blue is ultramarine light, and the magenta sort of color is magenta red, primary. And the other 2 or 3 colors are also Lucas Krill. They're just a couple of different blues, and I think it was Viridian green. So I'm gonna just be kind of swirling this around, doing some of this business back and forth swirling. Oh, there's a little bit of that green, not too much. Just wanted to get a splash of it in there, and I didn't want it to go to waste. So there we go, kind of circling it around there. Coming back to the center here, I do like to save a little bit of my paints in the cups because I take these little spoons I've been using. These are like little ice cream sample spoons. You know, as an art teacher, I have all kinds of resources, and when I see something cool and I'm out in the real world, which is going to be rarer and rarer. Middle school is not the real world. When I'm out in the real world and I see something I like, so this was like at Marble Slab Ice Cream Shop years ago, I thought I can use these spoons. They're awesome for putting paint onto whatever, you know, from your little palettes. And so I asked the gentleman that was running the place if I could order a box through him, and he was kind enough to let me. And lo and behold, I still have them. They were like a box of, I don't know, 10,000, or I can't remember, some ridiculous number. But it was like $16, $17. Of course, this has been, oh gosh, 10 years ago probably by now, 8 years ago. Besides teaching mostly middle school art, I've also taught middle school science. Kind of in between there a couple times. And then return to art. You never know. I may yet return to science again. And I love reading, teaching students to read. I have taught the younger kiddos before, and that is such a treat to see a child develop reading skills. Because it's a lifelong thing they'll use, and you just know that, you know? Not that art isn't. It absolutely is. The cool thing about teaching art is you really get to teach everything in art because we use all the different subjects. We measure. We do all kinds of cool stuff in art. See a little thick piece of something there? I want to get it out. There we go. Got it. So, going back to these edges again. Trying to keep it on the canvas as much as possible. I do like to pour it off the sides because I've said this before and I'll continue to say it. I like the three-dimensional effect of having the paint going off the sides. It just adds so much, I think, to the painting. And that's just something that I prefer. Now, some people love to have their paintings with black edges, and I get that. You know, we all have our faves, right? You should do it the way you like to do it when you're painting, as we all should. Now, I'm trying to get this lower edge over here. I want to get this right down in here, so let me step it this way just a little bit more. One more time. Oh, yeah. Okay. Now, I want to center this kind of really cool looking part back in the middle here. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's gorgeous. Now, the cool part I've noticed in these last 2 or 3 paintings where I've been using the gesso on the bottom of the surface, the first thing down, like you would in any normal painting, actually, when you're doing something that you don't want the canvas to show through quite as much on, that is the white coming through. And, of course, there's some silver in there, too, that you're seeing some light areas in, but the white from the gesso actually does come through, and I kind of like that, I gotta say. It gives it some nice balance. You just don't want too much of it in too many places. You want to make sure you get good coverage and other things. Now, I have no idea what's actually going on up here, but I'm touching it along to make sure that mostly it gets covered with paint, and I'll get up there and look at it in a few minutes. Now, the reason I do save some paint to the side is because there will be touch-ups. Once I get the torch going, the paint will shift around a little bit, and we're going to need to go back probably. And, my gloves are messy. Thank God I've got gloves on. Because this stuff, you can wash it off, but it takes a little work sometimes. And I'd rather spend time painting than washing my hands. I wash them enough as it is, and I figure, you know what? Gloves are wonderful. So now, oh, yeah, I almost forgot. I don't have the torch ready to go. I'm going to try something a little different with this one. I'm going to take this opportunity to do something slightly different than I originally planned, because I just remembered I think I'm out of butane in here. Let me pause for a second.